The show, I don't know how long the show's been going, but I'm sitting here reading texts and checking news. Appreciate all of you out there. I hope you had fantastic Thanksgivings with your friends and family wherever you are across the country. I was blown away. Only 16% of you play family Thanksgiving games. Football? We play every year. What are you doing with your lives if the kids are not out playing? I'm not saying tackle football. I'm not saying you need to wreck people out there. I'm not saying you need to play the most significant or serious game imaginable. But it seems kind of fun. I now, by the way, will post sometimes. I posted, I think, 2 videos of family Thanksgiving games. Usually I post those on Instagram. So it's just easy, and like in stories, it goes away after 24 hours. I kind of like the Instagram story feed. So if you're like, and I'm not somebody who usually spends very much time taking photos or any of those things. But if you're out there and you're on Instagram, I tend to post things on my Instagram story. Otherwise, I pretty much only post to Twitter. So that's my social media, time and diet and experience there. All right. We got a lot to get to. Lane Kiffin to LSU, as I predicted that he would do for some time. We got new coaches at Arkansas. We got new coaches at Ole Miss. We got new coaches at Auburn. We have got a fired coach at Kentucky, new coach at Florida. It's been a wild, unbelievable, incredible past several weeks in the SEC. And let me start with Lane Kiffin. All over 30A, which is where I spend pretty much all the time that I'm not here in Nashville. For those of you who don't know, beautiful beaches, fabulous people. The area between Destin, Florida, Sandestin, to be a little bit more specific, all the way down to Panama City Beach, the Florida Gulf Coast. Everybody who came up to me that wanted to talk about anything, all they wanted to talk about was Lane Kiffin. Where's Lane Kiffin going to go? Every SEC fan base is hugely represented on 30A. It's basically the SEC beach, the beach of the SEC. It's the Hamptons, but with people that are actually fun to hang out with, would be the way that I would describe 30A. Everybody wanted to talk about Lane Kiffin. And to me, the biggest storyline associated with Lane Kiffin is everybody wants to assess blame. The entire purpose, basically, of the internet in general is it's a big blame culture world. I don't blame Lane Kiffin. I don't blame Ole Miss. I don't blame LSU. I think all of them acted in their own rational interest. The people who lose out here are not coaches. They're not players. They're not conference administrators. They're not media like me. They're fans. And I'm a little bit unique because I am both fan and media, and I've been that way for my whole 20-year career. I love college football. And in particular, I love SEC football. I am unabashed in this. I think college football is the best sport in America, and I think the Southeastern Conference does college football better than any conference in America. Doesn't mean that I also don't respect other schools or their traditions or their rivalries. I love all of college football. In fact, if you listen to Clay and Buck, you will see that Buck has correctly deduced that I trust college football fans more than I do other people because I just feel as if we speak a common language. And it is true that no matter who the fan is of college football, when I interact with them, I leave all the time liking them more. And I think that's one of the great things about college football. But what is going on here is everyone acts in their own naked self-interest in college football, college athletics in general, but college football more so than anything else. And oftentimes there isn't anyone looking at the bigger picture self-interest, which is basically fandom. I have made a great living in sports because of sports fans. College administrators, the ADs, everyone who works inside of athletic departments, they all make really good livings because of the fans. The coaches, Lane Kiffin's going to get paid $13 million a year. Coaches all make great livings because of fans. Players now, above board, are being paid millions of dollars a year collectively, some of them individually millions of dollars a year because of fans. It was, I think, rational for Lane Kiffin to leave Ole Miss and go to LSU. The argument there is LSU, Coach O, and Les Miles are not as good of college football coaches as Lane Kiffin is. They both won national championships at LSU. There is only one big state institution in the state of Louisiana which per capita produces either the most or nearly the most college football elite athletes anywhere in the country. And if you get those kids to come to LSU, as Lane Kiffin largely will, because they all grow up wanting to go to LSU, he will win a national championship there, probably. Now, they said the same thing about Brian Kelly. It didn't happen for him. So there are high expectations. There's high pressure. But I think it was rational for Lane Kiffin to leave Ole Miss for LSU. I also think it was rational for LSU to pursue Lane Kiffin as aggressively as they did. And I also understand and think it was rational for Ole Miss to say, hey, if you're leaving and you are going to go coach a rival, you can't coach Ole Miss through the playoff. Elevating Pete Golding, I think, was a good decision by Ole Miss, too. So looking at each of these individuals, institutions and larger world picture, I think all of them made the right decision for themselves. Lane Kiffin's going to make more money. He's got a better job. LSU's got a better coach. Ole Miss said, well, if you're going to leave us, you can't go to a rival. And yes, LSU is a rival and start to recruit against us. We've got to have our own coach in place. Everybody behaved rationally here. The people who lose out are the fans. Okay? And this is where I think college football needs to be careful. Because ultimately, the reason why college football makes the money that it does is because of fan interest. Fans love their school more than the coaches often do, more than the players often do, certainly far more than the media does that covers all of these athletic events. If I'm an Ole Miss fan, I'm furious at Lane Kiffin. I know exactly how Ole Miss fans feel because I felt that in 2010 when Lane Kiffin walked out on Tennessee after a year, right in the middle of the signing day. All of Lane Kiffin took his whole staff, and people forget this, but Lane Kiffin said, hey, leave, don't enroll at Tennessee, come to USC instead. For people who don't remember, they had to turn off the coaches' cell phones at the University of Tennessee because they were mercenaries. And they immediately flipped and started saying, hey, remember how we told you to come to Tennessee for the last year? Actually, we're leaving. There's this place for you at USC. You should come there instead. I was upset because I'm a Tennessee fan, but the mercenary culture of college coaching is what it is. And when you have contracts that are not enforceable, and perpetual free agency for both players and for coaches, you are creating a disloyalty to fans. And over time, if you are disloyal to fans, you start to cut away the fabric of what makes the sport so special. Now, let me say this. I'll play this video. There was an Ole Miss reporter who said that you can't make a hoe a housewife, right? And I think we've got video of that confrontation that our own Trey Wallace got. Lane Kiffin went up to him and made this argument, and I've got a take on it. So I want to play that video. I see it right now. I believe we have it. Can we play that video? It's a short video, and then I'll react to it.
Machine defender. Let's see how now.
The culture creates hoes. And I don't mean that as an insult. When you are constantly able to change jobs and take more money, every single one of us is a whore. I'm just being honest. I understand that people want to rip the idea of being a whore. All a whore is saying is, if you pay me enough, I'll sleep with you. Every one of us who has ever been an employee on some level is a hoe, because you're selling your labor to an employer, and almost every single person in America, if they got a 50% raise, would leave and go somewhere else. This is what I love about media in general. I'm just going to call them all out. If you offered 50% more money to any sports media member in America, they would be on and you offered them a private jet flight to the new job, they would be there in 10 minutes. So the whole morals thing where people are like, oh my goodness, can you believe, like, what have we done? Like, oh my goodness. Like, everybody's writing all these histrionic columns. I'm like, bitch, you would take, for $50K, you would do anything. You would be on the next flight for an extra $100K. You would get on the plane right now. Okay? So the whole concept of this is absurd, okay, when it comes to sports media. Now, I don't even think Lane Kiffin left, and we can put up his statement. I don't even think Lane Kiffin left for money. That's the funniest part about this. He left for a better job opportunity. He left because his goal is to win a national championship, and he thinks he can accomplish it easier at LSU than he can at Ole Miss. The reason why he left Tennessee and went to USC was he thought he could win a national championship easier at Southern Cal than he did at Tennessee. Now, there's also some experience, I think, that he had it prepared for, the microscope that you're living under when you are suddenly in Knoxville compared to living in Manhattan Beach, where you're like the 768th most famous person in Manhattan Beach. There's an element of that, I think, that was different for Lane. He didn't like necessarily everybody paying attention to every little detail of his life. I get it. It's nice, I think, on some level to be able to walk into a restaurant and not worry about whether people are going to take your photo or whether you're going to have to spend 30 minutes working your way through. There are certain jobs, I mean, I think Alabama football, Kentucky basketball, where the job itself is more important than the governor, more important than a senator. You got to kiss a lot of babies. You got to pose for a lot of photos, all those things. I think Lane Kiffin, as a younger guy, I think he would say this 15 years ago, really didn't know what he was walking into. But this whole concept of, I can't believe Lane Kiffin did what he did. Every time Lane Kiffin has made a choice, it has been about Lane Kiffin. And I don't blame him. Because look at what happened with Mark Stoops at Kentucky. He's the most successful football coach at Kentucky in any of our lives. Kentucky just fired him. Look at what just happened with Hugh Freeze at Auburn. Look at what just happened with James Franklin at Penn State. Look at what just happened with Billy Napier at Florida. These guys get paid a lot of money, but there is no loyalty. They are viewed as hoes by the schools that employ them. There's no loyalty. Everyone is operating in naked self-interest. You're hired to win football games. If you win football games, everything's fine. We love you. As soon as you lose a few games, you're done. So you can't have a university behaving in that manner. You can't have all the players behaving in this manner. We have no restrictions whatsoever on player compensation, basically, or player transfers. And coaches, it is just the most nakedly self-interested of all sports out there. And in the wake of what I call the Berlin Wall coming down, NCAA was absurd. I've argued it for a long time. The idea that you couldn't make a living off your talent is the antithesis of everything I believe. See, I want everybody to sell their labor, if you're an employee, for the highest possible amount of money. If you are a business owner, I want everybody to run their business to the best possible profit margin of their lives. That's capitalism. What we had in college athletics, which I ripped for a long time, and I was right about this, is we had a penumbra of compensation that was allowed, right? Oh, well, we can build great weight rooms. We're going to build cathedral-like football stadiums. We're going to have the best luxury suites anywhere in, frankly, the world. But the players themselves that are filling the stadium and making all the money, well, they're not allowed to be compensated for that. And I said, well, I don't agree with this system in general. But what we did was we went from NCAA communism to unvarnished capitalism basically overnight. And the historical analogy I have used is Berlin Wall came down 1989. Minute the Berlin Wall came down, suddenly in Eastern Europe, you could buy a tank. You probably could buy a nuclear weapon. You could buy a kidney. Everything was for sale. There was no regulation associated with capitalism at all. And when you have pure capitalism, there is no institutional support for the culture surrounding it. So you cannot have a completely unregulated capitalistic environment, because completely unregulated capitalistic environment, it actually creates such naked self-interest that corruption destroys the foundation of the entity itself, right? And that's what I worry about in college athletics. There is no adult in the room as the overarching commissioner of college athletics to make the right choices. Now, if I had a magic wand, I would say SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey should be the national collegiate commissioner. Instead of, because I think he's the best commissioner in all of sports. And he's a friend. So you can say, Clay, you're biased on this. I think Greg Sankey with the SEC has done a better job than Roger Goodell with the NFL, than Adam Silver, certainly with the NBA, than Gary Bettman with the NHL, than Rob Manfred with Major League Baseball. I think Greg Sankey is the best commissioner in all of sports. He's only got 16 schools. I think he actually should have all of college athletics. This is my take. No one else out there that, to my knowledge, has made this argument. And you can say, oh, Clay, you don't have any idea what you're talking about. I think I do. I think the way that Greg Sankey led the SEC during COVID, and the fact that we even had a college athletics season, for those of you who have forgotten, in 2020, I think that he deserves to be commissioner of all of college athletics. Greg Sankey's predecessor, Mike Slive, was the commissioner of the SEC. I got to know him well, too. And he said something that I think is very important. And I'm paraphrasing him here, but I've written about it. The quotes are out there. Some of you can seek them out. He talked about the fact that he viewed the SEC as a public trust. That the Southeastern Conference mattered so much to the people of the South. The institutions mattered so much to people who will never even have the opportunity to go to those schools. The fabric of the country, people make fun of it. It just means more, but it does. It means more, college football does, in the South than it does anywhere else in the country. And if you haven't ever been to an SEC football game, I would encourage you to check it out. It matters more. It means more. Public trust. When you are a public trustee, you have this great asset. And your job is, you recognize that whatever lifespan you have, it's relatively short. And so your job is to protect this public trust, to make it better, ideally, and to pass it preserved on to the next generation. I don't know that anybody's doing that for college athletics right now. A lot of people are acting in their own naked self-interest. But I'm not sure that anybody out there is looking at the larger collegiate athletics picture and saying, what's the right choice for those of us who love college athletics to ensure that this public trust, this incredible fan base, that it's preserved for decades, generations to come? And I say this, the guy who wrote my first book, Dixieland Delight, about loving college football, loving the SEC. What I love about college football, and this is true of other sports, but I think it's particularly true about college football, is it brings generations together. I posted a picture on my Instagram story. I spent Thursday, Friday, Saturday. All I did was watch college football and football in general surrounding Thanksgiving. I watched with my 3 boys, who are obsessed, probably not a surprise, with college football and college athletics like I am. I watched a little bit with my wife, who was more interested, frankly, in going shopping. I watched one of my good law school buddies who brought over his 3 boys. I watched with my brother-in-law, my nephews. We played football during commercial breaks. Watched with my dad, 81 years old. Basically, every male in my family and friend group, everybody was gathered around watching sports. And if you go to tailgates in college football, uniquely, grandpa, son, grandsons, granddaughters, everybody running around. That's a public trust. That is generations of people that love their school. I'm not sure anybody's acting on their behalf. There are a lot of people acting on behalf of different discrete parts of the college. I'm going to say college football, but really it's college football experience. But I'm not sure how many people are actually acting on behalf of the lifeblood of the sport itself. And that's what I worry about. Because I've made a great living. You told me in 2004 when I sat down in front of my laptop and started writing about SEC football from a Virgin Islands law office that come 2025, I would have become super wealthy and I would be able to make a living to a large degree talking about college athletics. You told me even back in 2013 when FS1 launched and I was a part with Aaron Andrews and Eddie George and Mike Pereira and Petros Papadakis and Joel Klatt. And we got to sit down and do a college football show. When I got to host my own Friday night college football show 2014 out on the FS1 lot. Heck, if you told me, Clay, you're going to get to do 4 years of sports television, sports gambling. Heck, I got an OutKick show that airs on FS1 now. I would have said, you got to be kidding me. This is going to be an unbelievable career experience, and it has been. I love college football as much now as I did when I was 10, when I was 8. Long before I ever thought, hey, I'm going to be able to make a living about it. Who's looking out for the bigger picture college football fan? Because again, Lane Kiffin, right choice. Honestly, rationally, for him individually, it's the right choice. For Ole Miss, elevating Pete Golding, trying to keep as many of those coaches as they can on staff, it's the right choice for them. For LSU, it's the right choice to go get Lane Kiffin. It's not the right choice for your average Ole Miss football fan. You've been sitting around your whole life, if you're an Ole Miss football fan, dreaming of making the SEC championship game, dreaming of making the college football playoff, dreaming of going 11-1. It happened. And then your coach walks out on you before the season is over, and you can say, well, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's willing to coach. Yeah, sure, but Ole Miss can't have LSU's football coach for a month in Oxford coaching their team. Can't have it. So all of these individual actors who had choices to make, LSU, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, they can all make rational choices. But the people that are left behind are the Ole Miss football fan. The guy and gal out there that have been going to games for 40 years in the Grove. The guy and gal out there that scrimped and saved so their kids could go to Ole Miss. The guy gal who's working their ass off, part-time job to be able to pay their tuition so they could get a degree from Ole Miss. The people who bleed Ole Miss to the heart and soul and depth of their fabric of being. That's a public trust. Lane Kiffin walked out on them. They love Ole Miss more than the coaches, more than the players, more than any of the media, by and large, that covers college athletics. Who's got their back? Now, look, it's not just Ole Miss. You could make it any number of teams out there, right? The fans are the reason why all of us make money. And if you're not making the right decision for fans, this is bigger than college athletics. Man, I spend so much time worried about this. What it costs to take a family. I've got 3 kids. I am blown away by what it would cost and what it does cost when we go to games. Now, I'm fortunate to have the resources to be able to do it. I didn't have that growing up. I don't know if my dad could afford, based on the salaries that he made, and my mom, who worked too, could afford to have taken me to the games that we did because of what it costs today. You know, I grew up, and a lot of you are going to remember these days, I grew up when you would sit in the upper deck, oftentimes, and you would watch people in the lower decks to see if you could find a ticket checker that was not really on the ball so that you could sneak down to better seats. Do you know what that feeling is when you get into the better seats at the lower level and you're wondering whether, frankly, what I felt were the rich people are going to show up or not? I'm old school. If you're not there for the opening kick in your seats, or you're not there for the first pitch, I don't think you should get them. Like, I think people in the upper seats should get to come down. I think it should be like they should get your seats. If you can't make it as a rich guy or gal, if you can't make it to your seats for the first pitch or the opening of the game, I think the poor people who came down from the upper decks, which I used to be, should get to sit in your seats. But you remember that feeling where you're looking around, you keep scooting over, somebody's coming down, you're like, oh no, are we in their seats? Are we going to be able to keep scooting around? It's the second inning. Are they going to show up? It's midway through the first quarter. Are they going to show up? Who's thinking about that guy? Who's thinking about those kids? I really legitimately worry about it in college athletics. It's a bigger picture issue for pro sports, right? Because that's the way that they're basically just grinding everybody. I really do wonder about it. And you could say, well, that's just capitalism, Clay. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Charging the most that you possibly can to get the most out of people. I get it. That's how capitalism works. But there is a public trust component to all of these relationships. And you want grandpa and grandson to be able to go to a game together because that's what makes grandson 40 years later showing up for the games. And I'm fortunate to have the resources to be able to do it. But I do wonder if you're an Oregon State fan right now, if you're a Washington State fan, are you looking around saying, hey, college athletics really worked for me? Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore. I think that's a fair question. And if you are California and you're having to travel all the way across the country to play a game, Is that really what college athletics should be about? Again, I think these are big questions. I think there's a lot to get into on them. And I think oftentimes we don't have a depth of conversation associated with this. This is why I sat down with Cody Campbell. I want to be doing more of these long-form conversations because there's a lot of glib simplicity that overlooks the complexity of the way this is set up. And I think we can be doing better with it. And, the NFL is imperfect in many ways, but an NFL coach doesn't walk out in the middle of the playoffs and abandon his team because the structure to allow that to occur isn't in place. Does that make sense? And if you try to hire an NFL head coach who's under contract, the only way you can do it is with draft picks. We can't have perpetual free agency for players and coaches in college athletics. And this is something I've been arguing for a long time for college coaches, and now we've layered on top of it college athletes too. At some point, it starts to destroy the underpinning of the sport itself. And again, this is a long discussion point on this. And a lot of people are just going to give you glib takes, short with no depth analysis. I'm more concerned as I get to be a middle-aged guy with what is the future of college athletics? What is the future of these huge cathedral stadiums that we have built? And is it a good thing for Ole Miss fans who have dreamed of this season for their entire lives to suddenly have their coach leave in the middle of the year? I don't think so. And again, I don't blame Lane Kiffin. I'm not trying to assess the blame here. He's doing what's in his best self-interest given the circumstances of the current sport. I don't blame a college kid who decides, I played for Alabama last year, Auburn's offering me more money. I played for Ohio State last year, Michigan's offering me more money. Last year I was a Kentucky guy, now I'm going to be a Louisville guy. But I do think that when that's happening, the culture of the sport, the legacy of goodwill from fans is diminishing. And this just may be me on an old man rant. Some of you may say, oh, you know what, Clay, this is the best thing ever for college. I don't think so. But again, maybe I'm wrong. And my boys, they will tell you, we got YouTube TV down at our Florida place. I don't know how to work it. I can't easily get from one app to another, and I'll admit that I'm the old guy now. I just want to have one remote. I'd like to watch my favorite teams play. But I do think it's a really interesting debate. You want some on-field analysis? Diego Pavia is the best player in college football. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, in my always humble opinion, he should be the Heisman Trophy winner. I flagged Stuart Mandel, shared some of this, the data. I think I've got it in a screenshot that I can find. Last 4 games, 1,761 total yards, 75% completion, 16 total touchdowns, 268 passing yards, 165 rushing yards. Led Vandy first ever 10-win season. Vandy kicked Tennessee's ass. I watched the game on Saturday. Diego Pavia, if I had a Heisman Trophy vote, would be my Heisman Trophy winner. Now, I think Diego Pavia is going to be left out, unfortunately, from the college football playoff because of the situation that we're in. This is actually the perfect year to have a 16-team college football playoff, okay? And let me explain what I mean. To me, there are 5 SEC teams that are in the college football playoff, in no particular order. Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Bama, okay? All 5 of those teams, I think, are in. Some people out there are going to say, well, Clay, what if Alabama loses to Georgia? I don't think that the SEC is going to allow their overall conference champion, because remember, Alabama went on the road and beat Georgia. I don't think the SEC is going to allow their overall, you can pull up the top 15 if you want while I talk. I don't think the SEC is going to allow their overall champion, because Alabama finished first in the SEC, to be eliminated from the college football playoff because Alabama would be in right now because they happen to play a conference championship game. I just don't think the SEC is going to allow it. You can say, well, the college football playoff, man, all these things. I agree. I don't think you can elevate Notre Dame or Miami or Vanderbilt or BYU above Alabama after Alabama had to play an extra game. They would be in the playoff right now. You can keep rolling through with my top 15. So I think that the 5 SEC teams are in. Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon are in. That's 8. We're going to see the Big 12 champ get in. I expect it will be Texas Tech. That's 9. The non-power conference champ is going to get in. That's 10. The ACC, totally broken. I'll talk about this some more tomorrow, has got Duke, 7-5, playing for the ACC championship after winning a 5-way 6-2 team tie. ACC champ is going to be Virginia going up against Duke. Probably the ACC champ is going to be in. There's the possibility that if it's Duke, you could end up with a second non-power conference team. And that means there is one spot left for 10-2 Miami, 10-2 Notre Dame, 10-2 Vanderbilt, or the loser, 11-2 BYU or 11-2 Texas Tech. Now, if BYU pulled off the upset and won the Big 12 championship, then I think Texas Tech would be in. This would all be moot. Notre Dame and Miami would both be out, as well as Vanderbilt. Okay? To me, this is going to come down to Notre Dame against Miami. And I think if you look at the overall rankings of the College Football Playoff Committee, I think it is going to be impossible to put 10-2 Notre Dame in above 10-2 Miami that Miami beat head-to-head. And make sure we clip and share this. People say, okay, Miami lost 2 games. You're right. They should have beaten Louisville and they should have beaten SMU. But Louisville and SMU both finished 8-4. Those aren't awful losses. Miami down the stretch dominated a lot of teams, including Pitt, blew them out like Notre Dame blew them out. And in week 1 of the season, Notre Dame and Miami played, and Miami beat Notre Dame. Now, you can argue, well, Notre Dame's better now than Miami. You can make that argument. You can say Vegas would favor Notre Dame over Miami. You can make that argument. But the actual reality is Notre Dame and Miami played week 1 of the college football season, and Miami won. The foundation of tie breaks in all of sports throughout history, what's the number one tie break? What happened head-to-head? Miami beat Notre Dame head-to-head. Now, there is a very strong argument that Notre Dame is better right now. Vegas may think that Notre Dame would win if they played on a neutral field right now. But the decision on the College Football Playoff Committee's desk is best and most deserving. Every single team has to analyze in the prism through both best, who is the best, and who is the most deserving. If you believe Miami is Notre Dame's better than Miami, that's fine. But they're not the most deserving. Miami is, because they won head-to-head. And the actual on-field results have to matter. Otherwise, why would we even play the season? There has to be a tangible result from actual competition. You can't just have Vegas say, these are the 12 best teams. Now, if Notre Dame and Miami had finished both 10-2 and they had never played, Notre Dame would be in. But in this scenario, Miami beat Notre Dame. The game has to matter. Notre Dame's out. There's also an argument out there. Some people are saying, what about Texas, Clay? I actually think this is a perfect argument. You know, college football is the only sport that ends and we just argue at that point. That's all we do. Season ends, and then everybody sits around and argues about what they think should happen. I'll tell you about that in a sec. But in the meantime, go get signed up for Prize Picks. You play $5, you get $50. You can go download the Prize Picks app. You can get hooked up during the holiday season. Amazing weeks of football, whether you like the NBA, college basketball, whether you like NFL, whatever sport you like, it's all happening every single day on the Prize Picks app. You can download the Prize Picks app. Use code OutKick. You get $50 when you play $5. You can play in Texas. You can play in California. You can play in Georgia. 40-plus states, 13 million people playing. If you're feeling left out or just want to have a little bit more fun, go to Prize Picks. Download the app. When you use code OutKick, you get $50 when you play $5. Code OutKick, $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Okay. Let me go back to my argument. Texas, 9-3. Longhorn fans all over the place are saying, Clay, if we hadn't played Ohio State, if we had played random, small, non-power school down in Austin and we had beaten them, if we had played Ohio, the Bobcats, I think, if we had played Ohio instead of Ohio State, we'd be 10-2 right now. You're right. I don't disagree. You lost 14-7 back in week 1. Here's the problem. You're not wrong. Second part of that argument, you're 9-3. Why are you 9-3? Well, you lost to Ohio State. Great team. Great. Understand totally. That could happen on the road. You were expected to lose, and you did. Also, you lost to Georgia on the road. Now, they whipped you pretty good, but Georgia's really good football team. Other than Alabama this year, almost nobody has ever gone into Athens and won in the last several years with Kirby Smart in charge. You are right about that. That's a justifiable loss. You lost to 4-8 Florida. So you didn't have to be perfect. Alabama lost to FSU, but then they only lost to one other SEC game the rest of the way. Alabama went on the road and they won at Georgia. You lost to Florida. The reason Texas is not going to be in the playoff isn't actually because they lost to Ohio State. It's because they lost to Florida. You were favored to win that game. You lost to the 4-8 Florida Gators. It's hard for me to have sympathy for Longhorn fans because of that game. Well, you can say, well, yeah, I played, but if we had played Ohio, even if we lost to Florida, we still would have been in the playoff. That's right. But guess what? Here's where I go a little bit deeper on the analysis. You also won in overtime against Mississippi State, and you won in overtime against Kentucky in Lexington. Neither Kentucky nor Mississippi State is any good at all. You guys went to overtime against them. The team that beat Oklahoma, the team that beat Texas A&M, the team that beat Vanderbilt, those are 3 great wins, is not the team that actually almost lost to Mississippi State and Kentucky. In fact, it's an inconsistent Longhorn team. That's how you lost to Florida. I wouldn't have Texas in my top 12. I don't think they have an argument to be there, in my opinion. I would have them in my top 16. I think there should be 7 SEC teams if we had an overall 16-team playoff, which is why if you said to me, Clay Travis, you have a magic wand, wave it, I would say do away with all conference championship games. I'm going to talk about Alabama and whether they are going to get left out too. There's no game to them. Have co-champs. Let's go straight to a 16-team college football playoff. We can have the committee rank the teams 1 to 16, no reserved places for any conference champions. If you're not able to get into the top 16, you're left out. 1 plays 16, 2 plays 15, 3 plays 14, 4 plays 13, 5 plays 12. Let's see if I can get this right. 6 plays 11, 7 plays 10, 8 plays 9, top 8 host. Boom. Start the college football playoff sooner. Eliminate all conference championship games and go straight to the playoff. Start the playoff. Bump Army-Navy to this coming weekend and start the college football playoff on this week would be December 12th. Play that. Play the next round around Christmas. Give 10 days or so. And then, hopefully, on January 1st, play the final four, right? Final four teams. And then, like 8 days later, play the championship game. There you go. Boom. Magic wand. Start the college football season a week earlier if you need to. Compete less against the NFL. Get everything done before the NFL playoffs ideally start. And there you go. College football. I'm thinking for the big picture of college football more. Top 16 teams, regardless of what conference they're from. No automatic, in any way, no automatic spots. Just take the 16 best teams. Let the playoff committee rank them. If Alabama loses in the SEC championship game to Georgia, I think Georgia's a 1.5-point favorite. I actually think Georgia's going to win that game. If Alabama loses to Georgia, then I still think Alabama has to be in unless they get blown out like 42-3 and Ty Simpson gets hurt. Let me say this on the on-field play too. Congratulations to Kalen DeBoer and the Crimson Tide. The decision to go for it on fourth down late in that game in the Iron Bowl. Ty Simpson took hit after hit after hit, showed great balls. And the touchdown pass, I would have kicked the field goal. Would have felt good about my defense being able to hold Auburn. But Alabama went for the touchdown. Props to them. Incredible win. Capped off a phenomenal weekend of college football. I think it's going to come down to Notre Dame and Miami. I made the argument why I think Miami is going to be the last team in. Now, I actually think the ACC, again, the reason I dislike conference championship games, Miami was the best team in the ACC this year. If you were going to have an automatic bid in the ACC, you should go to Miami. They were better than Virginia. They were better than Duke. So to me, that is a no-brainer. All right. Tunnel to Towers. Can we pull them up? You guys know I love Frank Siller and all the work that Tunnel to Towers does. They have made a tremendous difference for so many people out there. In October, I was up at Liberty National Golf Course. In March, I believe, or April, I was down at the West Palm Beach Trump Golf Course. I love Frank Siller. I've known him for a long time, for over 2 decades. They have been there for our fallen and catastrophically injured. I have seen the people that they have helped. The widows stand up and tell us the story. What is the impact of having a mortgage paid off? I have donated with my own money and certainly with my own time to this organization because I appreciate what they do. They've helped over 1,500 fallen first responders, families, fallen police, military members. They've helped pay off their mortgage on their homes, and they just have a tremendous impact. I want you to please join me in donating to them at t2t.org. That's t2t.org. At Crockett Coffee, we offer 10% of our proceeds to Tunnel to Towers. We donate a lot of money. t2t.org. That's t2t.org. Get hooked up today with helping Tunnel to Towers to make such a tremendous difference for so many people out there. All right. Long show today. I had a lot to say. I'll be on with Will Kane, at least scheduled to be in about 30 minutes. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I am Clay Travis. This has been OutKick, the show. I will see all of you guys tomorrow. And again, thanks for all your support of both OutKick and me. And thank you for everyone out there who busted their ass during the holiday weekend. I hope that you and your friends and family had a spectacular time. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. See y'all.